Will Fleury, how are you?
Good.
Welcome back to studio. Have you ever done anything like that? Intermittent fasting, insane diets, anything like that?
I've played around with a bit of intermittent fasting, yeah, and I've done the ketogenic diet for a little while. Yeah, like I don't know if they're the best for a high-level athlete, but they don't look, in terms of IGF-1 and all that, there seems to be a good bit of evidence behind the fact that they're good for longevity and stuff like that, but for athletes, I don't know.
What do you think about the ketogenic diet like?
So you feel pretty good on it. Your brain, as in once you've gotten into it, there's that little window where you feel like crap for a few days when your body's switching over from sugar-based energy source into ketones. But once you're in it, you feel great. It's just that explosive energy. So what I noticed was, say if I was pinned to the ground grappling or anything like that, it was very hard to make that explosion to get out of that situation. And then even if you did, you'd feel like there wasn't another one left in you. You'd be a bit exhausted and your heart rate would be way higher than it normally would be.
Yeah.
But in terms of hit a bag for 60 minutes, it's just you have energy for all day. So it's great for that kind of slower, longer stuff, but the short, bursty kind of explode stuff, I don't know, you don't have the energy in the muscle.
Yeah, it's interesting because Cian Healy's obviously gone to a different level since he started his intermittent fasting. His body shape has changed. He still seems to have a good bit of that explosivity, but he's become more of a mobile athlete and he's a better athlete.
He's intermittent fasting with carbs.
Yeah, massively.
Massively. I can only imagine.
Let's talk a little bit about workouts there, because there was another thing he mentioned there, which was kind of watching guys on Instagram and saying, oh, that guy's doing an insane, or as he described it, a sick workout. I want to copy that. I want to put myself into that dark place. What's the most incredible thing or ridiculous thing you've done in training?
I do a lot of really intense conditioning stuff. I used to use the Aerodyne a hell of a lot, which is the assault bike, and just do bursts on that where I try and get my wattage through the roof for 20 seconds and then recover within a minute. And during that minute, you'd be on the floor, doing your best to survive. But at the end of it, I stopped doing that because I didn't feel like it actually gave me the best result while I was sparring. So my body used to ramping up like that, and that's great for lactic conditioning, and it does get a little bit more muscle energy there. But why are you doing this? What benefit does it have is what I ask myself these days. So I'm not mad to just go and put myself into pain because I can do that. I know I can do that. I know I'm kind of resilient in that sense. But why am I doing that? What result am I getting from doing this? And actually, now that I've taken a little bit of a step back and I kind of do a little bit more light aerobic sort of work along with all the really insane stuff, I probably get a better result than even nowadays I do a good bit more rowing and stuff like that. And I've set some ridiculous times on a rower just by kind of not killing myself every day, by having your days where you go okay, this is going to be tough, but it's 80% of what I can endure. And then you have your day where you go all out, balls to the wall, and it's those days have to be broken up. It can't be constant. And I think I was one of the, I'm kind of on that end of the spectrum where I'm just mad anyway, I don't want to go in and go balls to the wall every day. So kind of changing that out and taking a little bit of a step back and not being insane all the time was kind of a big step forward for me.
Would you have been the same, Andy?
I would have done those hard sessions, yeah. And the biggest benefit of them is the mental strength it gives you by going through those barriers. Knowing that you've paid the price, that you've basically killed yourself in training, just kind of it strengthens your resolve, and know that once you step in that ring, you've done it. You've paid the price, and this guy hasn't. You know what I mean? And then that's it. I know there's no effing way he's going to beat me after what I've just put myself through.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest benefits of doing that to yourself, isn't it? In the gym.
So much of fight fitness is mental, and it's how much you think I've done a hell of a lot more than you. I know you haven't put yourself through what I've put myself through. And when you can look across a guy and feel that and believe it yourself, that's the main thing. It doesn't really actually matter what you're doing as much as you believe what you've done is incredible and that he couldn't have done it.
That's very interesting. We've had you in a couple of times, Bill. We've kind of charted the highs and the one low only so far, really, in your professional career. You've gone to 6-1 as a pro in the MMA game now, fighting at Bellator at the moment, over in Oklahoma City the week before last.
Tackerville.
In Oklahoma. Yes. Big difference, I'd imagine.
Yeah, tell me.
Tell us about that. What was it like? It was Antonio Jones that you took out. Unanimous decision?
Yeah. Pretty dominant, unanimous decision. Probably could have got the finish in the first round. couple of little adjustments. I had his back for quite a while. I was quite close to choking him out. I even had his arm, like, best position you can be in is on the back with the arm trapped, because they only have one arm to defend themselves. I got that for about 30 seconds. You know, people were saying, oh, he's a big thick neck and, you know, he's big traps and stuff. I could have finished that if I just adjusted on my, like, I wanted to be square with his back and I didn't quite get there. And that's my problem. I just have to fix a few little technical things. So disappointed in a way to not get the finish, but look, happy enough with a very dominant victory. Like,
it's interesting. One of the things you always say, Andy, is that over in the States, they love to see the finish. I presume that's the same in the mixed martial arts game.
Yeah, and it's the same everywhere. Look, people love a finish here too, you know, and it's a clip, it's a highlight, you know, whereas 15 minutes of domination, okay, there'll be a couple of little things you can extract out of that, but like, everybody loves the viral clip, especially these days, like, so to not get that's disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find yourself gaining incrementally as a skilled mixed martial artist at this point? Do you still think that you kind of got all the skills down? Or it's kind of hard to know how you actually gain improvements here, because I'd imagine the margins are quite small.
They're small, but like, you have to keep struggling to improve. And even MMA is such a wide variety of skills, you don't ever feel like you're going to be amazing at everything. So you have to continue to go like, okay, where's that weakness? What can I do here? And even like, you know, I've gone back and watched the fight probably 15 times so far, and I see loads of little details, and I'm like, oh, come on, you know better than that. Like, and it's the things you already know that you have to kind of make, look, this just happens. When your brain tries to do this, you just do it perfectly. So it's even just drilling again, the same stuff. And there's a ton more. Like, look, there are guys who are incredible leg lock specialists, and I'd probably know 30-40% of that game, and I'm not a master in it at all, and there are things you can constantly improve on. Like, so with MMA, there's never enough time to get to where you want to be, really.
On that video analysis, is it something that's kind of you're driving yourself? Is it an SBG directive? Do you have a lot of coaches kind of coming around pointing things out?
Like, nobody's going to do anything for you,
sure.
You know. So there are people out there who, like, if I come to John with a detail and say like, oh, what do you think I should do in this situation? He'll give me a hand. But like, if I'm not the one who wants to learn it and do it, it's not going to happen. Like.
And what sort of things are you going to John saying, I want a hand with this?
Just different things, like even the finish on the back. Like, I was straight away after the fight, I was like, what happened there?
Okay.
And he's telling me, look, you're not on the center of his back. You know, you need your nipples on his shoulder blades. You need to be right in behind. You need to be able to use your powerful pulling muscles there. Kind of get the lats involved a little bit more. Little details like that. And like, you know, I've come to him with a load of other stuff since, just being like, where do I need to be here? Why didn't this pass work? You know, and then like, intuitively, just from doing it for so many years, I kind of have a little bit of a sense of it, and I'll have my own opinion. And like, sometimes you get into a bit of a debate about like what the best course of action would have been in that situation. But yeah, like, you could go to as many people as you want in there, because there's a whole kind of, there's a group of people with a massive skill set, and you can get a ton of different opinions, and it can nearly be too many opinions at times. Like,
it's interesting, because like we've spoken about this as well, Andy, isn't it? The kind of idea of a gym and the culture of a gym, and how everybody's out there for themselves at the same time. But ultimately, the only way each individual can really get the best out of themselves in that gym environment is if there is a collective way of thinking as well. If that selfishness is kind of taken back a little bit, and there is a bit of a group mentality, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a tricky balance, like, because you have to be concerned primarily with your own career. But at the same time, if your training partners aren't invested slightly in your career, you know, it's to the detriment of your career. So like, I need to make people buy into what I'm doing to a certain extent. So if it comes sparring day and I'm whooping your ass bad every day, you know, you're not too invested in Will. You don't want me to do well necessarily. So like, there's a kind of an odd human balance there. And it is interesting. And like, that's why I think, you know, if people saw like the camaraderie and the way we, you know, have to kind of get on really well with each other, and like, by doing stuff like this, you form a bond with people as well. And like, the more hard rounds you've done with somebody, the more you know that guy, the more you just inherently know their character. So like, it's very interesting, and it's very hard to kind of express the balance of it, if you know, like, where it should be, and why you just inherently lie in a different place with certain characters. Like, there are guys you'll get on incredibly well with, and you'll just have that, like, straight away, we click, we can beat the crap out of each other for 5 rounds, be grand afterwards, we shake hands, it's no problem. Then you might have a guy who, like, you might not even be in tough sparring session with them, but there's just an animosity and there's an energy. So yeah, it's interesting.
Taking it personally that you're beating the shit out of them, or?
Yeah, and like, just different egos, just sometimes you don't click with somebody, and you know, there's just a natural animosity between the two of you, and you know.
That's it. Have you had that?
Yeah, The respect is when you're when you're sparring with somebody. That's when it's hard not to respect somebody when you've given it everything and they've given it everything, isn't it? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, big time.
And even if you don't like them, you'll still respect them. It's the ones who don't do that, isn't it? It's the ones
the
who
guys who kind of snake out a little bit, like,
oh no, I can't today. Or
yeah, my foot's a bit wrecked. Yeah.
So there is, and it's like you spoke earlier about changing your training, like not going to that place and not pushing yourself. Who's like is in terms of your training in the gym and SPG? Are you kind of leading your training in terms of your conditioning and your fitness? Are you pushing that?
So I train separately in a place out in Terranure with this guy Adrian Quinn, and he's in charge of my conditioning and just kind of strength development and energy system development. I could do it in SPG if I wanted to, but I spend enough time in there, and I kind of like even just mentally to get away.
In there's technical sparring.
And that even when I used to do the 2 in there, you kind of feel like I'm here all day, and it doesn't give you that little bit of mental work.
They're teammates, but there might be competitors as well. Is like not wanting anyone to see what you're doing.
A little bit of that, yeah. There is I suppose. Look, if somebody asks me, I'll tell them. I'll be like, here's what I do, here's how I map this out, here's the energy system I'm trying to develop. But I like having that air of kind of mystique about it, where it kind of intimidates people a little bit. And I think to a degree, even with training partners, that's why it's kind of interesting. I intimidate my training partners. They don't like to see me coming, and that's a good thing, I think. But at the same time, I'm not going to be a dickhead to them. I'm not going to go out and really, try and affect them personally. But if they, I want them to know if a Will shows up, you're going to get some hard rounds today.
For sure. What happens next for you? Are you going to fight in this Bellator card in September? Are you looking for just volume at this point still?
Yeah, September, I 100% want to be on that card. I've been told that I have a massive opportunity to be on that card. And the fight I want right now is this guy, Fabian Edwards. He's an undefeated amateur and an undefeated pro. He's got a lot of hype behind him. And I want to derail that hype train.
Is he any good?
So, yeah, look, he's a long southpaw, he's kind of athletic southpaw. And a lot of people have found him quite tricky to deal with. He came over and he started training with us for a little while. And I've trained with him once or twice.
And how did that go?
Yeah, there's a reason I want this fight so much, Yeah, look, I feel like I can kind of deal with this guy very, very easily, and it's just given me the opportunity to do that. Bellator don't seem too keen to give me the opportunity.
Why not?
It'd derail their hype train. They have a guy in England who's undefeated, as a pro and an amateur. They've just lost another undefeated guy in England. They want to build him up a little bit.
Right, so Bellator are almost afraid of giving you this fight?
Yeah, it looks like that, yeah.
That's interesting. So what's been happening in these sparring sessions then that you'd be so confident of this?
You never
sparred, okay?
No, we never fully sparred. We did we did a positional session, and in fairness, his grappling isn't considered his strongest point, but it was a very easy deal with him grappling wise.
How big would that fight and that win be for your career?
Huge. Yeah, and look, here's the thing, I'm going out and beating legit guys, but they're legit guys without much hype behind them. He's a guy who's decent, but he's a ton of hype. You beat him, things change for you. So I want that opportunity. Presumably
on a financial level, on a livelihood level.
Yeah, and even on a recognition level. I'm by far the best middleweight in Ireland, but it just doesn't seem to have taken off. Even Bellator had a press conference yesterday. If anyone's going to make it on a world stage, it's me. I've beaten tons of legit guys. All the fights I've been involved in have been legitimate contests, and yet there's not even a hint of me being kind of paraded down at that press conference. I've just won in the States.
What is this? In boxing, it can be similar, where there are guys who are not that good. Why is this English guy getting so much hype as compared to you, you're more likely?
In fairness, he has a good few viral kind of clips where he's knock guys out. He looks athletic.
Does he sell tickets?
I don't know if it's actually that as much, because here that's a huge thing. But over there, I think it is just a few viral clips, and his brother's in the UFC. His brother's just put himself into title contention on Saturday. And his brother's a very good fighter, to be fair. So I think it's that storyline and that whole thing, and it's kind of just building up.
Yeah. It's always funny how certain guys get that, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, look, time sorts all that out eventually. It's just getting the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and making it work for you, not so that when you do. See, the thing is with them that they'll try and drag it out and make it wait and
Yeah,
put you in
and that's the thing. And
hard fight. Then you do get to fight him. You're not the fighter that you once were.
I'm 30 now.
You've paid.
I'm like, I'm not old,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
So like, that's why I'm so eager to get this chance. Yeah. And even like, look, beating him isn't going to be the pinnacle of my career. I want to go on and do a hell of a lot more after that. But beating him is the step to where I want. Like, that puts you in contention to get all the things you wanted to get when you set out to do this. Like, so I want to get it soon.
What's his name?
Fabian Edwards.
We want you, Fabian.
Boom. Good man, Andy.
One last thing. You should be his manager. One last thing we wanted to chat about this morning, because we were talking about it earlier with regards to the Dadashev story, the boxer who passed away in the ring on Friday night, passed away yesterday after injury sustained in the ring on Friday night, I should say. And Andy kind of brought up the point about the culture difference that is perceived to exist between boxing and mixed martial arts. Is it true that people in MMA are not as disrespected if they pull themselves out of fights?
I think because of the whole submission element of the game, yeah, there has to be a level of acceptance that, look, sometimes the fight's over, you've been caught in something, it's, you're going to pass out, tap out, or your joint's going to be destroyed, live to fight another day. So probably from that point of view, there's a greater level of acceptance that, look, this is something that has to happen at times. The Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she tapped the strikes in a title fight, and she was somebody who put herself out there as like, I'll go till the end, I'll go to whatever, and she got really heavily criticised for that. But I think anybody who trains to this level and anybody who you don't get here without wanting it very, very badly. They don't quit for no reason. So even in that situation, who knows what's going on with her body at that point in time? Maybe she can't see, maybe her balance is all over the place. You don't know where she's been. Like, sometimes a shot can look a little bit innocuous and it can be a massive shot. Like, there is a better level, like there is a greater acceptance, and I think kind of a more open-minded culture in MMA in general. But you do have a lot of fanboys now.
And people aren't as afraid of a loss in the MMA. I think, like, I don't think
it's becoming a bit different now. It's becoming a bit more like boxing now. So, like, say even, my loss in Rome there, that's against a legit fighter. It's like all of my contests have been against legit fighters. But even a 6-1 record these days isn't what a 6-1 record was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Where like people go, oh well, you've won 7 legit, or 6 out of 7 legit contests. You have a lot of guys now who are fighting kind of really can fight.
Records.
Yeah, and the records don't mean as much anymore. And then because of that, there's like, oh well, he lost to a guy already, he must be crap, So there is that element of boxing in it. But there are still some old school fans who would have that kind of level of like, oh.
Yeah, well, I think that's where it's always been driven from in terms of boxing, because a loss sets you back so much in your career progression, but also within like how you look to people. When they just see, 17-2, it's not as impressive as 19-0. It's not as attractive on a card or on a poster so.
MMA is becoming more and more like that,
that's
unfortunately.
A shame.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
But that comes with a severe area of risk as well, does it not? Because the reason why we're talking about this is because of what happened this week. It's because of what happened to Dadashev and his death yesterday. So ultimately, if you have a culture that Andy talks about where a boxer pulls out of a fight, going to lose the fight anyway, and is ostracized. I'm not sure. Am I putting that too strongly?
No.
He ostracized from the boxing community for pulling himself out of a fight because of serious risk to his own health, or he felt to be a serious risk to his own health. That's not a healthy thing to be bringing into mixed martial arts.
Definitely not, no. There's 2 things, though, that are slightly different, I suppose, about MMA as well. If you're dropped and you're badly hurt, you will be finished. The fight won't stop and you won't get a chance to recover. And a lot of people wouldn't see that as a good thing. I do, though. I think if you've been hurt to the point where you need 10, 15 seconds to get up, get your bearings about you, and then continue to fight, and you're going to sustain a hell of a lot more damage throughout, you might get up and take another 100 blows to the head. That's not a good thing, Getting that guy finished on the ground, and maybe he takes 1 or 2 more shots, but he's in a better position having been dropped and once or twice hit than he would be had he been dropped, given a while, get back up and take untold damage. There's also, I suppose, Ireland, since the death of Al Carvalho, we've started doing contrast MRIs on, you have to have one before you can compete, and it's basically mapping out all the blood vessels in your brain, and And if there are any exposed blood vessels or anything that looks like it could be a risk factor, you're not cleared to fight.
So just explain that. What is the worst case scenario of an exposed blood vessel?
A hemorrhage or, brain bleed.
So this data can tell you if you're at risk of bleeding the brain.
I'm not sure what exactly happened on Friday evening, but I imagine it was a burst blood vessel in his brain.
It was cerebral hematoma, bleeding on the brain.
So like somewhere, and I'm not saying it was like a weak blood vessel or whatever, but somewhere there was something that was slightly more exposed than it should have been.
Right.
And then the impact of that against the skull created swelling in the brain.
Before fighting the MMA, would you have your MRI? How soon?
It has to be within 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got
same in boxing. 4 months sometimes. And depending on the state, you might have to get a new one for each fight.
So he would have been.
But the thing is, you're sparring in between isn't it? That's when the damage can be done. And a lot of time, damage is more done in sparring, and then you're taking it into a fight.
Yeah, and again, I'm delighted to hear that they do that in boxing as well, because it's so much more applicable to boxing as well. You get your heads rattled a lot more. Generally speaking, there's more.
But it is the succession of punches, and it's always like the second knockdown that will do the damage. The first in fights, the first you get knocked. I back up your point where in MMA, if the fight's over, it's over. Someone will get knocked down, they'll get up, and if it's stopped, then they're usually fine. But it's just sustained punches and continually being hurt that does the damage, it seems.
Yeah. I've watched a couple of MMA fights where the guys have passed afterwards, and in fairness, the overall death toll isn't that high, but it's still pretty fucking shocking that anybody dies doing this. But it always seems to be brutal fights that do. It's never just a one shot. You got done. I don't know if you saw the Ben Askren knockout. He got flying knee KO'd by George Masvidal, and he was stiff for.
Was that the one was in the first couple of seconds?
Ran across and just but it looked horrific, as in his body was stiff. He was not responding for 40, 50 seconds, but he gets up, he's fine. He does an interview 2 days later. It's very coherent, very cerebral. You see things and then you wonder, if had that fight not been had that been a whack to the head and he was able to stay conscious and he kept going and he kept getting more damage, it could be a totally different situation. So in a way, maybe he's lucky he got finished that early.
It's true, isn't it? It's like when the thing goes on for a little bit longer and they're still standing. It's almost, it's the old adage. Granted, it wasn't as severe damage, but the old thing they used to say about Muhammad Ali, his worst attribute was his strong chin. He managed to take so many blows to the head, and over time that obviously was the thing that finished him. It's not a nice topic of conversation, but it's an important one to have anyway. Will, we wish you the very best. Oh, sorry, one more thing.
A question before you go. I read your Twitter bio. Tell me about these 16 guys.
What's this Twitter bio say?
He's a legend. He beat 16 guys outside the Hillbillies one night. So
let's hear about this.
It's kind of bullshit, really. Fuck. I really need to change that bio. I was on a mate's back one night and we bumped into a bunch of guys and they shoved us over and started kicking us on the ground and stuff, and then we kind of separated out and my mate went back into them to give him a good telling off, to tell them they were a bunch of assholes, and they kind of surrounded him. So I was just I was a big lad, I was playing rugby at the time, and I just drove into a lot of them, and a lot of people fell over basically, and then I ran one lad into the fountain and gave him a few slaps, and that was it.
And at what point did you count that there were 16 of them?
No, I didn't. I got phone calls the next day telling me I beat the crap out of 16 guys outside Hillbillies, and I was oh, okay, cool. So I just ran with it then.
Great stuff, Will. We'll see you on that card in September for sure. After this call out this morning, you're going to get that fight, and
I doubt it. I doubt that'll happen. But
you'll see you in some shape or form.
Yeah, I'll be fighting somebody that day.
Dublin, Bellator. What date in September?
Will happen eventually as well.
That's an important one to get down. What date in September?
27th.
27th of September. Very best of luck with that. I'm sure we'll be catching up again soon.
Cool.
Will Fleury there in studio. It is now 11 minutes past 9 and you're watching OTB AM.